How meditating before competition can significantly help your game. I'm Tony. Welcome back to Street Ball Strategies.
On your microwaves. Lately I ain't messing with a lot of youths, cause they been trying to get it before they pay their dues. How you in the club every night when you ain't never do a damn thing in your life? What you trying to celebrate?
Today we're talking about the topic of meditation and using it specifically to try to help your basketball game. Now, just to be right up front, I'm not one of those like stereotypical kind of meditation, kind of hippie kind of guys or players. I'm not all about like manifesting stuff or like having a vision board or that kind of stuff. I'm not against it. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't really delve into that, realm of mindfulness personally for myself, for the most part. But I would say I have experimented, used meditation a lot throughout my 30 years of basketball. It's not something I consistently do. It's not part of my regular basketball practice or preparation. It's not something that I do on a regular basis, but I use it, I employ it when I feel I could really use sort of an extra oomph for whatever I'm doing in terms of competition. When I really want to sort of focus and concentrate and really do everything I can to have a good day, I find meditation can definitely help with that. So I've only used it occasionally, but over 30 years, occasionally turns into a lot. So let's talk about what I mean by meditation and then how we can actually use it to help improve your game. So story time. For those of you who are not interested in kind of a little bit of my backstory, then feel free to fast forward to the next chapter. So when it comes to meditation, one of the first ways I sort of discovered how meditation could help and how I was able to use it to help improve my game was I was fortunate to grow up in a neighborhood where the entire neighborhood every weekend would get together and play whatever sport was in season. And I was also very fortunate that I grew up playing with a group of players who most of them were a little bit older than me. And one of them was a couple years older than me. At the time when I started taking the game seriously, he was really developing into one of the mainstays, one of the known players in our neighborhood. But the reason he was known was not because of the traditional way a player is revered in terms of like he shot the ball really great or he was really athletic or he was like really fast or he could jump really high. His game was very unconventional. It was a very awkward kind of game. And I don't just mean like the way he shot a jump shot was weird and awkward and unconventional, even though it was. His whole entire game was weird and awkward, unconventional. But that wouldn't really matter if he wasn't actually a good player, and he was beyond good. At least he worked his way to being beyond good. He took his unconventional game and made it very successful for himself. So he played very weirdly. He moved very weirdly around the court. He was very awkward, but he was also very successful. He won way more often than he lost, and you put those two together, and now you have a player that the more he does it, the more he gets to be revered in our neighborhood growing up. Now, had he been a traditional basketball player with super good athleticism or traditional kind of basketball talent and been successful, and there were a few other kind of players like that in our neighborhood, I would have never really measured myself to them because I don't have their God-given athleticism or basketball talent that they had. But this guy, he didn't have that either. He had a very awkward, unconventional game. He was not all that athletic. He was about my size. He was maybe a little bit more, he was maybe an inch taller. He was maybe a little bit more muscular, but I was probably more athletic than he was. And so because he didn't have traditional athleticism or basketball talent, and neither did I could then measure myself against him. And the fact that he was very successful allowed me to sort of look at him as inspirationally as him being like a rival of mine, even though he was also a good friend of mine. So as time goes on and I continue to get more and more serious about my game and continue to evolve as a player, he worked his way into his prime and He got to the point where most of the time he'd come up to the court with his awkward, weird game and pretty much dominate whoever was out here. And at the same time, I'm elevating myself to try to catch him, looking at him as a rival. And even though he didn't look at me that way, because I was obviously still beneath him and I was trying to catch him, years go by and he's now in his early 20s and he's gonna move and leave town, right? He's moving out of town. He's not gonna be around anymore to play basketball with. So a few weeks before he's going to leave, I'm out at the court putting in my work, right? Like I do all the time, every day. And he happened to come by the court. I don't know if he did that on purpose or if he just happened to be passing by the court. He comes out there, sees that I'm out there as normal. He comes over, right? We start shooting around. It's just him and I. We're just shooting around, which of course eventually leads to us playing one-on-one. And when the game started, there was no thought like this is an extra special kind of game. There was nothing special about the game when it started, but as the game continues on, and we're playing to I think it was 11 we were playing to, I am handily winning the game. Like at some point I was up 8-3 or something like that. And I was doing that it wasn't that it was easy, it was just that it was the game was fully in my control the whole way. But because he is who he is and has the game that he has, he was able to make a comeback and make the game close. I think it got tied up at some point. I think we were playing win by 2, and eventually I did win the game. And even though he came back and made it close, the game never really felt like it was out of my control. That had never happened before. I had beat him in the past, but usually when I would beat him, it's because he wasn't really trying, he was tired, or he wasn't taking me seriously. I never really earned a real serious win against him until that game in specific. And neither one of us really thought about it, I think, or acknowledged it at the time, but that was kind of the torch passing game between him and I. It went from him being the guy out here, he's leaving town, he's not going to be out here anymore. It was him passing the torch to me, and then from that point on, I was kind of the man. At that point, I became the man in our neighborhood in terms of playing basketball, organizing it, getting everybody out to the court every week. I became the guy. So then a few years go by, and I don't really see him. He doesn't really come back. If he does, he's never on the court. But 2 or 3 years later, word comes down he's going to be in town. He's coming in a Thursday. He's going to be in town for a few days, and he's going to be out on the court this coming Saturday when all of us in the neighborhood are going to be out there. So it's a pretty big deal. The legend of the past is coming back to play. And for me, it was the idea of I wasn't trying to compete with him, because I knew at that point he probably hadn't been playing nearly as much as he had in the past. He was now a family man. Basketball was in his past. So it wasn't really a competition thing between him and I anymore. To me, it was more so that I wanted to prove to him that once he had passed that torch to me, that I had taken it seriously, and he had left that torch in good hands. And since the time that he left, the quality of basketball in our neighborhood had at least stayed the same, if not elevated, since he had left. I wanted to show him that respect. So the morning before the game was supposed to take place, I did something I'd never really done before, which is an hour or two before showing up to the court, I took time to sort of sit and be quiet and still and envision how I wanted that day and my play in that day to go. I'd never really done that before, because my default setting was always to be hype. Lots of energy, lots of intensity. That's what I like most. I'd never really experimented with sort of being still, sitting and being quiet, and really sort of envisioning how I wanted the day to go. But the day was so important to me that I thought, let's give this a try, because there's no way it could possibly hurt. So I sat and I was still and quiet, and I thought about how I wanted the day to go, and I tried to envision it as clearly as I could. And the day turned out really well. I played very well that day, I remember. I think what the meditation did for me that day was help me to be more steady throughout the day without having those peaks in those valleys. And since then, that was something that I don't know, I just didn't really get into it to the point where it's like, okay, this is going to be part of my preparation every single time there's going to be competition. It was, I liked to save it for special occasions. So now let's talk about how you can go about using sort of that meditation technique to help to improve your game when you feel you need it. So when I think about meditation, I automatically associate meditation with balance, and balance leading to consistency. So I mean both mental and emotional. Like, so for example, I was talking about with those peaks and valleys throughout a game or throughout a day, that's fine, and everybody obviously has them and experiences them. To me, it's like, okay, if you don't have to have them, or if they don't have to be so severe and you can sort of level them out, the more you can level them out, especially compared to the players around you, to me, that's a win-win. Like, nobody else is doing that. Nobody else cares about that. Nobody else thinks about that in that way. But if you can make yourself more balanced and thus more even and consistent while you're out here, then that's only a win for you. Now, meditation is one of those things that I often refer to out here, which is like, figure out what works best for you and just do that thing and repeatedly do that thing, refine it over time and get better and better at it. So I can't tell you exactly how you should do your meditation for your mind and your game, but I think there are some principles here that we can lay down and discuss that you can employ to help your meditation be the best it can. So number one, you want to be calm. Right? You want to be as calm as you can when you sort of go to meditate. And part of calm usually means quiet and being still, right? So you want to be as quiet, calm, and still as you possibly can. One of the best ways to do this, I found, is by breathing. The way you breathe, you want to breathe slowly, you want to breathe deeply. And the reason you want to be calm is because you want to do the best you can to envision the way you want to play on that given occasion. The more vividly you can imagine that, the better you're going to be once you get out here. So you can't hit a target you don't have. So the more vividly, clearly you imagine how you want to play, how you want that day to go, now you're giving your mind a target to shoot for when you are out here on the court. So whatever you have to do to get that calmness so that you can clearly envision how you want to play, then you do whatever you can to get that calmness, to have that vision, to have those thoughts. In terms of like how long should you spend meditating, I think, so my rationale for this, right, is I would say around 10 minutes minimum. Like, I think the longer that you can, the better, because then you allow yourself more clearer thoughts for a longer period of time. But like, my rationale is like, you know, when you sit down to first meditate, like, it's very unlikely your mind is just going to sort of zone in to exactly what you want immediately. It's probably going to take 2, 3, 4 minutes for your mind to sort of calm down, relax, and start thinking about what you want it to think about, to have the visions that you want to have, right? So if it takes 3 or 4 minutes for your brain, your mind, to actually get on the track that you want to be thinking about in the first place, then it's going to take 5 or 6 minutes, right, for you to actually have the thoughts that you want to have. So at the end of that, now you're like 10 minutes. That's probably enough. And even if it's way less than that, if it's 2 or 3 minutes or something like that, like, a little bit is better than nothing. But to me, it's like, the longer the better. However, all of our minds are scattered a lot, you know, with social media and all the distractions that we have in our daily lives. Focusing on that one sort of thought, that one's kind of image for a long period of time it's not going to last for 45 minutes or whatever. That's usually not the way it's going to go. So the way I like to think about it is, all right, take as much time as it takes to get your mind focused. And then once you start having those thoughts, the idea is you don't force your mind to start thinking that way, to start having those thoughts. Like, it's not a forceful thing. It's not, you're not making yourself do it. It's allowing your mind to sort of flow in that direction. Here's the way I think the day is going to go. Here's the way I want it to go, right? You kind of allow and relax and let your mind flow in that direction, right? At some point though, right, your mind, because it happens to everybody, it's just human nature, your mind's going to start to wander off from those basketball thoughts, and you're going to start thinking about other life stuff. When that happens, regardless of how long it's been, maybe you're able to sort of rein yourself back in and start thinking and focusing on the basketball stuff again. Maybe you can, but like the newer you are to it, probably you can't. Probably like once your mind starts wandering in that direction, if you're new to meditation, you're probably not going to bring it back. That's okay. Once your mind does start wandering in those directions, that's okay. Then you're just done for that particular meditation session. Maybe you can come back later, do it again, maybe not. But as long as a little bit of images in your head of how you want the day to go is better than nothing. But when your mind gets to the point where it starts to go in other directions, that's perfectly fine. You did as much as you could for that time. So your meditation session for that particular time is fine. If it was 25 minutes, great. But anything is better than nothing. Whatever allows you to be balanced throughout the day so you don't have those peaks or valleys, that's what you're looking for. Obviously, if you can accomplish that in like 5 minutes as opposed to like 35, then that's efficiency of time. If that's what works for you, I myself would prefer that, because I would prefer 5 minutes compared to 35 minutes. But all in all, it's just a matter of like what's optimal, what works best for you. You figure that out. You do it over and over again, you refine it over time, you get yourself to be able to meditate the best you can that works the best for you, you take it out here on the court, and you play the way you envision. So while meditation doesn't fit into like traditional basketball preparation, the way you would kind of prepare to come out here on the court and play the best you can, like most people when they think about basketball preparation think about workouts and drills and all that kind of stuff. Meditation is like way over here, it's not usually even considered. I endorse people to give this a try, and even if you're kind of the player who thinks like you don't really need to because your mental is already that strong or that focused or that calm or relaxed, whatever it may be, imagine how much better it could be if you did try the meditation and it actually did work to the degree of which I've been describing. For those of you who don't know, so I've studied basketball relentlessly over the last 30 years. I've tried to learn as much about it as I possibly could. Part of that has to do with like reading books written by great basketball people, great basketball minds. It's well known that Phil Jackson, the great legendary basketball NBA coach, he was kind of very hippie-ish, right? He incorporated like meditation into Chicago Bulls practice and preparation and Los Angeles Lakers basketball practice and preparation. I don't do that because he did it. I don't think it's coincidental that when I do it, if it's good enough for those guys, then yeah, I'm definitely going to give it a try. I didn't do it because they did it. I think I was doing it around the same time that he was doing it with the Lakers, and I didn't even realize he was doing it. But to me, it makes sense that it works, because why wouldn't it? There's no downside to giving it a try. The only potential downside is like someone sees you doing it, or you tell people that you do it, and then they think you're a weirdo and they make fun of you. But who cares? Like you wouldn't be watching this channel if you cared about that stuff anyway. So give meditation a try, and do it however works best for you, however leads to the ultimate end goal of you being consistent throughout a game or a day or whatever it is. The more consistent you are without those peaks and valleys, the better player you're going to be. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful or insightful at all, then please subscribe to the channel and comment below. Let us know your thoughts on meditation. Let us know if you do it, then how do you go about it? How do you make it as optimal as possible for yourself and efficient as well? Let us know down in the comments. The more we share that stuff, the more we can understand and the better basketball players we can then be. But before you comment, make sure you hit that thanks button down below, because not only does hitting that thanks button mean that all of your comments are going to be highlighted and stand out from any other comment, but it also directly supports the channel when you hit that button. So for anyone that does hit that thanks button, know I genuinely appreciate it. As always, like, share, comment like I said. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever any video goes live on this channel. And until then, see you guys next week.
Still I'm heading where the profit and the interest be. If it ain't about the money, it don't interest me. Heard a couple dummies trying to finish me. How you trying to kill me when you couldn't even injure me? And since nothing in life is ever really certain, made my own window of opportunity with open curtains. Man, I almost died under sleeping over working. No one can ever tell me I don't deserve it.